Chelsea want two midfielders this summer, and the transfer market is about to get very interesting. Could Chelsea be about to spend over £150 million on two central midfielders in one transfer window? If the latest reports are anything to go by, that is exactly what Todd Boehly and the Chelsea board are planning. The names on the table are Sandro Tonali from Newcastle United and Lamin Kamara from Monaco. Both are central midfielders, both are highly rated, and both could be wearing Chelsea blue next season if everything goes to plan. Now, before you get too excited or too worried, depending on how you feel about Chelsea spending big again, let us slow down and look at this properly. Who are these players? Why does Chelsea want them? What does this mean for the squad? And most importantly, is this actually smart business or just Chelsea doing Chelsea things again? Let us get into it. Who is Sandro Tonali and why is Chelsea interested? If you follow Serie A or the Italian national team, you already know Sandro Tonali. The man is a midfielder in the truest sense of the word. He can defend, he can pass, he can carry the ball, and he reads the game really well. He came through at Brescia, became a star at AC Milan, and then made the big move to Newcastle United in the summer of 2023 for around £55 million. It was one of the most talked about signings of that window, but then things went wrong very quickly. Shortly after joining Newcastle, Tonali was banned from football for 10 months because of a betting violation. He missed almost the entire first season at St. James Park. That was a huge blow for him personally and for Newcastle, who had spent a lot of money on him. When he came back from the ban, though, Tonali looked sharp. He showed glimpses of the player that made AC Milan fans fall in love with him. He has the engine to run for 90 minutes, the technical quality to play in a high-press system, and the leadership to organize things in the middle of the park. At 25 years old, he is entering what should be his best years as a footballer. So, why would Newcastle sell him? That is actually a really fair question. Newcastle are building something serious under Eddie Howe. They made the Champions League not long ago, and they have genuine ambitions to compete at the top of the Premier League. Tonali, when fit and focused, is exactly the kind of player you build a top team around. The answer probably comes down to money. Newcastle, like many clubs, have to be careful with financial fair play. If Chelsea come in with a serious offer, the kind that makes sense financially for Newcastle, it becomes very difficult to say no. Reports suggest a deal could be done for around £80 million, even though Tonali is valued at £116 million. That gap is interesting. It tells you Newcastle might be open to negotiating, but here is the question you need to ask yourself. Do you think Newcastle would actually sell one of their best players to a direct competitor in the Premier League? Drop your thoughts in the comments because this one is genuinely hard to call. What does Chelsea actually need in midfield? Before we talk about Lamin Kamar, it is worth stopping to think about what Chelsea actually need right now, because sometimes clubs buy players just because they can, not because they genuinely need them. Is this one of those situations? Or does Chelsea have a real problem in midfield that needs fixing? Look at the Chelsea midfield, and you will see a group of players that has been put together over several transfer windows. You have Moises Caicedo, who cost a record-breaking fee and is one of the best defensive midfielders in the world right now. You have Enzo Fernandez, who arrived from Benfica for huge money and has shown real quality at times, even if the consistency has not always been there. You have Romeo Lavia, who came from Southampton but has spent a lot of time injured. You have Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall, who was brought in from Leicester. On paper, that looks like a lot of midfielders. But in practice, Chelsea have struggled at times to find the right combination. The team has not always looked balanced in the middle of the park. There have been games where Chelsea have been brilliant and games where the midfield has looked slow or disconnected. What Chelsea seem to want is more creativity and energy in that midfield unit. Someone who can break lines with their passing, press high, and also contribute defensively. That profile fits both Tonali and Camara in different ways. The other thing worth mentioning is that Enzo Fernandez has faced some criticism this season. His form has dipped at times, and there are questions about whether he is the long-term answer as a number 8. If Chelsea decide to move him on, that creates a real gap that needs to be filled. Could Tonali be the man to replace him? Lamin Kamar, the name you need to know now. Let us talk about the player who might actually be the more exciting signing of the two. Lamin Kamar is 22 years old and he plays for Monaco in League One. If you have not watched him play yet, go and find some clips because this player is genuinely special. Kamara is from Guinea and came through the academy system before establishing himself as one of the most dynamic young midfielders in European football. He is a box-to-box midfielder who covers serious ground during a game. He tackles, he wins second balls, he carries the ball forward with confidence, and he has a real eye for a pass. For Monaco, he has been one of their most important players, and his performances have attracted attention from clubs all across Europe. According to reports, Chelsea are willing to spend up to €85 million to sign him. That would be a record sale for Monaco, topping the €80 million they got when they sold Aurelien Tchouameni to Real Madrid back in 2022. That sale worked out pretty well for Tchouameni, who has since become a key player for Real Madrid in France. Could Camara follow a similar path? What makes Camara such an interesting prospect is his age. At 22, he still has so much room to grow. He is already playing at a really high level, but the ceiling on his development is genuinely exciting. If Chelsea can get him, bed him in, and give him consistent game time in the Premier League, they could have one of the best midfielders in Europe in 3 or 4 years' time. But here's the tricky part. Chelsea are not the only club watching Camara. Liverpool are also interested according to multiple reports. Newcastle had actually been leading the chase for a while, talking with the player's entourage and building a relationship, but Chelsea have apparently moved to the front of the queue in recent weeks and are now considered the leading club in the race. Monaco, for their part, are not desperate to sell. There is no urgent financial need for them to let Camara go. An offer between 65 and 75 million euros could apparently make them consider it, but they have the power to hold out for more. This is not a situation where Chelsea can just walk in and take the player for a cheap price. So let me ask you this. If you were Chelsea, would you go all in on Camara at 85 million euros? Or do you think that price is too high for a player who has only really been at Monaco? Let us know what you think. The money question. Can Chelsea afford both? This is the part of the conversation that always gets complicated when we talk about Chelsea. The club has spent extraordinary amounts of money since the Bailey takeover. They have broken transfer records and assembled what should be one of the deepest squads in Premier League history, and yet the trophies have not come. The performances have been inconsistent, and the fans have at times been frustrated. If Chelsea signed both Tonali for £80 million and Camara for €85 million, we are talking about roughly £150 to £160 million in total. That is an enormous amount of money, and it comes on top of everything Chelsea have already spent in recent windows. Financial fair play is always a concern for clubs spending at this level. The Premier League has its own version of the rules called profit and sustainability rules, and clubs can face serious consequences if they breach them. Chelsea have been very creative with their accounting, using long contracts to spread fees over many years, but there is a limit to how far that approach can take you. If Chelsea want to bring in both of these players, they will likely need to sell as well. Enzo Fernandez has a market. Conor Gallagher left last summer. There are other players in the squad who could generate fees. The key question is whether Enzo would actually leave and whether Chelsea would be willing to let him go given the money they spent on him. What do you think? Should Chelsea prioritize buying one of these two and saving money, or should they go for both and worry about the finances later? This is a genuine debate, and we want to hear your take. How would these signings change Chelsea? Let us dream for a moment and imagine both Tonali and Camara arrive at Stamford Bridge next summer. What does that midfield look like? You could have Caicedo as your deep-lying midfielder, doing the defensive work and keeping things tidy at the base. Then Tonali as a box-to-box player with experience, Premier League knowledge, and the quality to dictate tempo. And then Camara as the more dynamic, energetic presence who presses high and gets into goal-scoring positions. That is a genuinely exciting midfield unit. With players like Cole Palmer, Nicholas Jackson, and Pedro Neto ahead of them, this midfield could be absolutely devastating on the counter-attack. Tonali and Camara both know how to start attacks quickly and connect the defense to the forwards. That kind of transition play has been a weakness for Chelsea at times this season. Defensively, both players can contribute. Tonali is not just a pretty passer, he puts in the hard work off the ball, and Camara is one of the most active pressers in League One. The Chelsea coach would have real options and real depth in the middle of the park, but there is always a risk when you bring in multiple high-profile players at the same time. How do you manage the egos? How do you keep everyone happy when they are not playing? Chelsea have had issues in the past with a bloated squad where good players could not get regular minutes and became unsettled. Adding two more elite central midfielders to an already crowded position creates a puzzle that needs careful management. The Newcastle angle, why this transfer is more complicated. If Chelsea signs Sandro Tonali from Newcastle, this is not just a straightforward transfer. It is a transfer that affects a direct rival. Newcastle are also competing in the top half of the Premier League, and they need Tonali if they want to push for the top four. Selling him to Chelsea would be like helping a rival get stronger while making yourself weaker. But money talks in football, always has, always will. There is also the question of whether Tonali himself wants to move. He came to England specifically to play for Newcastle. He chose them over other options. After his ban and the difficult period he went through, being at Newcastle gave him a fresh start in a supportive environment. Would he be willing to move to London? Would he want the pressure and scrutiny that comes with playing for Chelsea? These are human questions that transfer reports often ignore. The player has a big say in whether a move happens. If Tonali is happy at Newcastle and wants to stay, no amount of money from Chelsea changes that. Unless Chelsea are offering him significantly better wages and a chance to win more trophies, it is not obvious that he would push for the move. What do you think Tonali should do? Stay at Newcastle and be a big part of their project, or move to Chelsea and test himself at a club with higher expectations? Tell us in the comments what this means for the wider transfer window. Chelsea being active in the market for two central midfielders sends a message to the rest of the Premier League. It says they are not done building. It says they still believe they are a few key additions away from genuinely competing for the title. And look, they are not wrong to think that way. The squad has enormous quality all over the pitch. Cole Palmer is one of the best number 10s in European football right now. Nicholas Jackson has developed into a real Premier League striker. The fullbacks are quality. The defenders are solid. The midfield has always been the area that needed the most work. And if Chelsea can land Tonali and Camara in the same window, they will have addressed that issue in a big way. It also tells you something about how Chelsea see the transfer market working for them. Rather than chasing the established names at the very top, they are going for players who are on the rise. Camara is 22, Tonali is 25. These are not aging superstars being brought in for one last big contract. These are players who should improve over the next 3 to 5 years. That is the kind of thinking that builds a dynasty. Liverpool did something similar when they signed Fabinho, Jordan Henderson, and Jorginho Wijnaldum and built one of the best midfields in Premier League history. Could Chelsea be trying to do the same thing with a Caicedo, Tonali, Camara combination? The fan perspective. What do Chelsea supporters think? This is always an interesting angle because Chelsea fans have seen a lot over the past few years. They have seen big signings that did not work out. They have seen talented players leave. They have seen managers come and go. They have seen a team with world-class players fail to put it all together consistently. So when the transfer rumors start flying in April and May, Chelsea fans are understandably cautious. There is excitement, yes, but there is also a healthy dose of skepticism. How many times have we seen a Chelsea transfer linked that looked perfect on paper but did not deliver on the pitch? Tonali is a player Chelsea fans should be very excited about if he is fit and motivated. His quality is not in question. The question is whether he can stay healthy and consistently perform at the highest level after everything he has been through. Camara is more of an unknown quantity for most Chelsea fans. But if you look at what he has done at Monaco and how he has performed at international level for Guinea, you quickly realize this is a special talent. Getting him at 22 before he becomes a household name everywhere would be exactly the kind of business Chelsea need to do more of. The key question for fans is simple. Will these signings finally push Chelsea over the line and make them genuine title contenders? Or will it be another summer of big spending followed by another season of nearly but not quite? That question can only be answered on the pitch. Final thoughts. What happens next? Transfer windows are always full of noise. Stories leak, agents talk to journalists, clubs test the water with inquiries. Not every link becomes a deal. Not every deal that looks close actually gets done. But the interest in both Tonali and Camara feels real. Chelsea have identified central midfield as the area they need to strengthen. They have the financial power to make big moves, and both players fit the profile of what the club is looking for: young, energetic, technically gifted, and hungry to win. If Chelsea can get both deals done, the rest of the Premier League will take notice. It would signal that despite all the money spent and all the turbulence of the last few years, this Chelsea project is genuinely going somewhere. If they get one of the two, that is still a positive outcome. Either Tonali or Camara would improve the squad. And if neither deal happens, well, we have all been here before with Chelsea transfer rumors. The summer window opens in a few months. The deals will take shape. And by the end of it, we will know whether Chelsea have made the moves that finally push them to where they want to be. One thing is for certain, this is going to be a fascinating transfer window to watch, and as always with Chelsea, you can expect the unexpected. So here's the final question to leave you with. If you could only sign one of these two players, Sandro Tonali or Lamin Kamara, who would you choose and why? Drop your answer in the comments. Let us get the debate going. Until next time, keep watching, keep talking, and remember that football is always better when the transfer window is open.